just wanna give love. You should cut off all distractions. It's all on you now. And just give me some reaction. I just wanna give love.
Welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Akinshere. As you can see, Ebuka Obiochendu is unavoidably absent, so I'll be filling in for him today. Welcome. It's already 647 days since we last saw the Chibok girls. You can only imagine the pain, the grief, the sadness that's felt by the parents, not knowing where their children are. Our prayers are with them, and we pray for their safe return. On the show with me today is Mr. Leonard Ebute, a social commentator, and we will be discussing front page headlines from the past week.
Thank you, Isabella, for having me. Pleased to be on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So 647 days since we last saw the Chibok girls. Terrible numbers to start this show with. It tells us how deadly, how completely unacceptable the menace of Boko Haram and terrorism globally is. And hopefully we keep our prayers with the parents, and we trust in what our military and the government is doing to bring them back. Hopefully we can get them back. And let's keep the Nigerian spirit with them and keep believing that someday we'll get to see these heroes, not victims, but yes,
heroes of a growing nation. Yeah,
yes, and I think it's very important that it remains in public discourse. We cannot forget about them now.
Yes.
We have to keep reminding the government, reminding everybody that we need our girls.
Yes, absolutely agree with you. And when we do get them back, we need to build monuments to continually remind us that this is completely something we want to avoid in our history for the rest of our days, and even for future generations. There's always a touch of significant level of sadness when I talk about Boko Haram, having grown up in the north, lived in Jos, having survived 5 different attacks myself. So it goes home. They are not just numbers, they're not just people, they're not just statistics, they are names, parents, brothers, you know, friends,
people that you've actually known,
yeah,
people that you've had a relationship with, who
absolutely
have lost their lives to this menace, which we believe will come to an end. Kudos to the army for doing a good job.
Absolutely.
They are continuously fighting against Boko Haram.
Absolutely.
And we're really proud of them.
Yes, we are.
So now, in the news last week, there was something that some people took the wrong way. They called it Lasma fever, but it's actually Lassa fever. Lassa fever, not Lasma fever. And just like the Ebola crisis, I'm not sure if people are really feeling it, like everyone taking sanitizers everywhere. There's been a lot of discussions about not taking gari. You must boil the water, make it into eba. But what can we really do to prevent more deaths? Because people have already lost their lives to Lassa fever.
Well, it's not a good question to ask me, being not being a medical practitioner.
But do you want to have Lassa fever?
No, definitely I don't. And Gary being a staple, if it's a possible point of entry for the disease, then it should be a significant public health crisis in the making. And I think a crisis mechanism should be triggered immediately by the government. I hear the rather funny assertion credited to one of our senior officers that cats could help.
Oh, right, because they will eat the rats.
Yeah, I mean, scientifically speaking, biological controls exist in the literatures, but I think it appears like trivializing a much more difficult, much more serious public health situation when he did make that comment. I didn't think it was intended that way, but nevertheless, we expect that if Nigeria could cope with Ebola, and today I really want to be very hopeful, very, very patriotic, if you like. If we could deal with Ebola like we did, respond to it with the appropriate level of focus and determination, I think Lassa is going to go behind us. We've had quite a number of similar things already, and we succeeded. We outgrew them as a country.
Definitely, and I think we need to be more hygienic. We need to ensure that the way food is prepared, because with Gary, people just spread it out on their rooftops, on the road, so you don't know which rodents can go.
But we grew up on all those.
But I think now it's very important that we're just extremely careful. So don't leave food, unattended to, and don't be trying to find out what rat it is. Once it's a rat, it's wrong, it's poisonous, and it can be harmful to your health.
Rat is actually food in some parts of the world.
Yes, it is, but not here in Nigeria.
Oh, definitely here in Nigeria, in Benue State, where I come from, for instance, rat is really good food. So that's potentially going to be what do we call it? Something off the menu.
Yes, just like bushmeat during the Ebola time, where people had to stop eating bushmeat. But I'm sure that with the response that we have, the health authorities are really on the case. Everybody's talking about it, whether it's Lassa or Lassa fever, and are doing their own part.
Yeah, I believe they are, yes.
So now to the news, the numbers, and I'm talking about the budget. There was this brouhaha of two different versions, and then the presidency versus the Senate, and Nigerians are asking questions that which is the right budget and what is the difference between the two budgets? And I think the best question really is, where are we going?
Yes, interesting. Good. The perspective that you added, I would have been thrilled to put the two budgets side by side to see whether there were significant areas of variance between them. But I can tell you, if I know Nigeria very well, that some of the potential areas of difference would not be the areas that matter to you and I, quite frankly. I do not think that there was going to be a difference in the budget for education, the budget for agriculture, the budget for defense.
So where do you think the difference will be between the two budgets?
I'm sure it will be around things like the president's upkeep, budget for Aso Rock, budget for the House, and those areas that affect our legislators. In recent times, I think the legislative arm of the government has been apologies to the eminent gentleman there, but a little bit too petty, in my view. The issue of the fight over the maize changes in the constitution in the lower house is there hanging, and then one version of the budget versus the other. Can the president change the budget? Can the president revise the budget? Can he withdraw and resubmit the budget? Those are trivialities, and every single day, what Nigerians should know is that nearly 20% of this administration's days have been spent.
20%.
Yes,
so time
actually
is going.
around 17% to be precise. So time is going. You've got a 4-year, 48 months program, and 8 months down the line, it appears that we're fighting over, they say we're fighting over trivialities in the House. I think the president is hard on, and is taking on some very difficult issues in his own way, and I think the House needs to be a little bit more supportive. I also think that maybe the executive arm of the government needs to be a little bit closer. There should be some pre-alignments so that we don't see all of the drama on TV and on the pages of newspapers. Some of those dramas need to have happened indoor,
Yes.
something like that. So there's a management issue that needs to happen between the arms of government.
Because really, Nigerians just want to see a united front. They want to believe that the government they've elected into power is ready to move the country forward. And we don't have time. I mean, months have gone. This is a new year. So whether there are differences in the budget, we want to know what is in the final budget. How will it affect the regular man, the regular woman on the street? What is in the budget? And I think Nigerians have every right to ask those pertinent questions.
Absolutely. And even without having seen the full text of the budget, the one being debated by the House, the budget discussion, I mean the announcement, the representation of the budget made by Mr. President has enough ingredient to spur more constructive debate, in my view. And
when you say constructive debate, on what particular issues or sectors? Agriculture, education, health?
First of all, the logic of a 2.2 trillion deficit requires a little bit more explanation than I saw in the budget speech. The position that it puts Nigeria at around 15% debt to GDP ratio isn't economically plausible enough from a pure analytics point of view. And the reason I say this is, if you're going to repay me for a loan I've given you, we look at your cash flow, not your net worth.
So how fluid are you? How much money is coming in?
So if oil revenue is around less than $1 trillion, and then you want to take a loan that is more than twice your cash flow, then there's a problem. The assumption of the oil revenue at $38 a barrel is a little bit too ambitious.
You think it's going to remain low, below $30?
The global outlook is around between $15 and $20 a barrel. And if you wanted to do a realistic budget and be on track, you take the lower margin, you go conservative when you're planning, so that when you hit a headwind, or when you hit a tailwind, then you can soar.
Yes.
Okay, but this overly optimistic planning scenario leaves a lot of gaps. It seems to be setting the stage for another supplementary appropriation bill, with all of the debates again, but moving away from that, like I said, I want to be a Nigerian today and be a little bit
You want to be patriotic, and you want to be
Yes.
optimistic as
Yes.
well.
So if we take the budget as it is, we have had really good budgets that analysts hailed.
Yes.
What was missing was in the implementation of 10% of it that are most critical to us. So if we take the current budget with all of its flaws, and we take security, and we take education, and we implement it to the letter, I think we would have probably more macroeconomic advantages, positives, than to have a really, really academically sound, logical, balanced, every logic taken into cognizance kind of budget, and still, suffer the kind of implementation gaps that we've always had historically.